Hey, folks, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash, and I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. This week is a very rich conversation, is the best way that I can describe it. John Stallone and Mike Costello from HOWL for Wildlife join me as our guests this week, and we dive hot and heavy into a lot of different stuff when it comes to wildlife conservation, wildlife management at state and national levels, um, the anti-hunting community, and how hunters can best get involved to help preserve hunting for the future. This is a very important topic, a very important podcast in my mind. And I encourage everybody to leave that play button going at this point and let this one run, even if it's in the background. Um, this is one that if every hunter who cares about hunting in the future of hunting should listen to, in my opinion. Um, because it's not just awareness about the stuff that's going on. There's also an importance to how we, as everyday hunters, no matter where you're from or what you hunt, how we can best represent hunting, advocate for hunting, and educate either not necessarily anti-hunters, but just the uneducated people, the people who don't know anything about hunting, who may never be hunters, one day in the future, but who have a voice at the table, especially as you start seeing more things becoming, ballot issues, such as what's going on in Colorado right now. So I'm not going to get off on a tangent or anything here in the intro. I'll save it for the podcast, but I really appreciate you guys listening to this, and this is an important one. So please keep it going. Before we kick into it, I do want to say the HOWL for Wildlife guys, what they're doing over there is very, very important. They talk about their organization and talk in detail about how folks can get involved. I'll say briefly right here, if you guys haven't already, or if you can, maybe even while you're listening to this podcast, go to their website, howlforwildlife.org, and check out everything they got going on there. And you guys can see all of the different agenda items and things going on across the country that they are getting involved in, that they are representing us as hunters in. And then you guys can help their cause and help join the fight. And even if you can't pay for their $30 annual membership, they have a free membership that you guys can sign up for too. So a lot of different options there. Again, the guys over at HOWL in this episode, they talk about it in much greater detail and a lot better than I can, but please go check them out and see what they're all about. The other companies that help make our podcast possible, real quick before we get into it, the first one is Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is a Texas-based company, but they make camouflage patterns and gear that are applicable everywhere. I've been thoroughly impressed this past season with my Hoot gear. The pattern is based off of one of nature's most adaptive predators when it comes to blending in, and that's the owl. I actually recorded a podcast several weeks ago with one of the owners of Hoot, and we talked about all that kind of stuff and kind of the inspiration behind their patterns. But if you guys want to go check out their gear, go to hootcamo.com. I'll vouch for it. I wore their stuff in Texas, in Colorado, in numerous different environments, in the snow even, and it worked really good for me. So if you guys are looking to get into a good, affordable set of camouflage, Hoot's the way to go for sure. They're priced very competitively and very reasonably for the blue collar hunter. So go check them out. The quality's there, I promise. And even if you're not going to get a full set of gear or go all in like that, at least pick up some of the everyday wear. If you're looking at the podcast video, you'll see I'm wearing a Hoot hoodie right here. This is actually one of their kind of lightweight casual wear hoodies that are on sale right now on their website while supplies last. So you guys can go check out the sale section, pick you up one for just a few dollars. They're pretty sweet and pretty comfy. So Hoot Camo, go check them out. Ridge Rock Hunt Company is another podcast partner. Derek Eves over there in Mississippi. He books hunts between you and vetted outfitters across the country in numerous different environments and hunting different species and everything. So if you're looking for that next adventure, perhaps that once in a lifetime hunt, and you want to do it with somebody who's going to treat you right and get you squared away, give Derek a call. He'll work with you on all the details and find something that's right for you. Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Derek Eves is the man. Go check him out on their website and on social media. The Outdoor Call Radio app is another podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcast playing on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. So go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately. And go follow Outdoors Dan on social media. He does a couple of live radio shows at local Midwestern radio stations every week. And even if you're not local to one of those stations, you can catch his live broadcast on his Facebook Live. He streams them on there as well. So go download the Outdoor Call Radio app and go follow Outdoors Dan on social media. Last but not least, thank you guys as always for listening to this podcast. And I always appreciate your support of Fall Obsession. Go to fallobsession.com. That's the website where all of our content streams through. We're not only a hunting and outdoor media production company that's active on all the major social media platforms, but we also have hunting shows, this podcast, a ton of other different kind of stuff that we produce, and it all filters through that website, so you guys can go check us out. And I'm also going to encourage you guys to go follow us on our censorship-free platforms. Go Wild is one of them. That's a social media network specifically for hunters and outdoorsmen. And then Carbon TV is the other platform where you can find several different Fall Obsession produced shows, such as Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset, as well as a couple of our different podcast series, this Fall Obsession podcast being the big one. And then our staff-inspired podcast, Couch Chats, streams on there as well. So make sure that you guys are supporting Fall Obsession. Hit that follow and subscribe button wherever you can and show us your love that way. If you want to pick up a hat or a shirt, you can go to fallobsession.com and do that. And if you're interested in partnering on this podcast with your own hunting or outdoor organization, go to fallobsession.com/podcast. And there's a form on there that'll put you guys in contact with our team. All right, we're heading over to the episode and our conversation with Mike and John from HOWL for Wildlife. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, everybody, we're back for another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. This week, my guests are joining us from HOWL for Wildlife. Mike and John from over there are with us this week on our show. Thank you for joining me, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And Mike,
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about HOWL and all the fun stuff that's going on in the hunting advocacy space these days.
I know, man. I'm excited. Like, and I know I've mentioned to one or both of you, I can't recall that we've touched lightly some conservation topics, on our show and our platform recently, and there's obviously a lot going on in that realm at the moment. But I'm super excited to really dive in hot and heavy for you guys on this one. And I think a great way just to break the ice and kick things off is not just, I want you guys to tell us about HOWL and tell us about, what you guys are doing over there, because y'all are making a splash. Like, at least I'll speak for myself on my social medias and stuff like that. Like, more of the podcasts you guys are doing with various platforms are popping up. More stuff on social media is popping up, and I think, and I'll turn it over to y'all and let y'all talk about it. But I think that there's some awareness being generated that people might have not been aware of before, and a lot of that's thanks to you guys. But I want to turn that over to you and let y'all talk about what you're doing over there at HOWL.
Right. You want to take this, Mike, or you want me to take it?
No.
Okay.
You lead, and I'll fill in any gaps.
Sure.
It's a big landscape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's because how we're doing so many different things. We're wearing so many different hats. The mainstay of what we do is we connect hunters to the decision makers on policy that affects wildlife management, conservation issues, and the ability to hunt and fish, or the opportunity to hunt and fish. So what that means is if you come to the website, you go to our action center, you click on an action, we provide you the information for that specific policy, whatever it is, and educates you on it. At the end of it, it says, okay, you want to put your name and your email address in here, and sometimes it asks for an address, sometimes it asks for a phone number, depends on who we're talking to, or where we're working. And you hit send, and it'll send a pre-drafted email. It's not a canned email. It'll go directly from you to the decision makers. It doesn't mention anything about how it goes directly from you to the decision makers, the people that need to hear. And the difference there is if you go to an action center somewhere else, typically it is a form letter. It'll say on behalf of such and such organization and our 50,000 members, we oppose this bill, or we support this, or etc. And those, you know, oh, they're okay, but they're not as effective. So what we've done is we've identified that decision makers want to hear from the constituents. They want to hear from the stakeholders on these things. And we're giving them sound and new stuff, not the repetitive stuff. So that they're getting anywhere from like several hundred different variations of an email to several thousand variations of an email, and it's editable. So like you can go in there and put your own words. You can put your own spin on it. Hey, I'm from this county and this affects my life like this, and so on and so forth. So that's the mainstay. We do other things like organize, we call them pre-game meetings, where hunters are going to go to a commission meeting or meet with open public comment period during a committee meeting or something like that. We hold a meeting, we give the information, we tell you how the meetings run, we tell you how to present, not how to, but how you'd want to present yourself. We give you talking points, and that way when you go to that meeting, you're better armed to be effective. And that's been super positive. We've had a lot of excellent feedback from the people putting those meetings on, like commissioners and so on and so forth, saying, hey, we've never seen so many hunters show up. It's always been, very skewed one way. It's always been anti-hunters showing up here and yada, yada, yada. Then one guy in the back, yelling about his rights. And now you guys are coming with a educated and well thought out argument. Then we're talking to the non-hunting public. That's that there's 5% anti-hunting, 5% hunting, and there's 90% of us in the middle. And we are pioneering outreach programs that are speaking to those people that are in the middle, because we found that what they're being marketed to right now is propaganda from anti-hunting. Anti-hunting's been doing an excellent job since way before we were kids. And in speaking to that middle ground and giving them their side, which is, we all know, filled with lies. And Mike could attest to this. He was on a live call today, which I'm sure he'll get into. They talk about all these different lies, and they paint you in this very unsavory picture. Like the idea of what a hunter is this, bloodthirsty, guy that just lops off heads and leaves meat out in the woods and, doesn't care about wildlife and so on and so forth. And you and I know that, and your listeners know that can be further from the truth, right?
Right.
So, we're doing things to change that, to get people to see the truth behind what conservation is, what hunting is, the intrinsic values of hunting, what hunting means to people, the food, the camaraderie, all these things that come out of it. And another big thing that HOWL is doing, and Mike's actually heavy in on this, and we could talk specifically about Colorado right now, but we act as a conduit for boots on the ground organizations to drive public and national awareness and to drive funding towards things that we can't physically get involved in. Um, and it's been huge. Like, so the reason why a lot of people know about the Colorado thing, and not to pat our backs, my arm's not that long, but um, is because that we've been able to put CRWM in this particular case in front of people and help push them along on a national level so that it becomes a national problem versus, or a national issue, not a problem, versus something that would have just been at the state level and possibly died there. So
Yeah.
I think that's about as all encompassing as I can. I mean, there's so many other little things that we're looking at, from education, hunter's ed stuff to R3 stuff and all kinds of little knick-knacky things that we're constantly, anything that kind of promote hunting in a positive way is kind of, we've dipped our toe in it at some point. So
Sam, you mentioned that you've had some conservation issues, conservation orgs on before, but I think so. Going back, why do we even exist? Largely, HOWL was born out of the 2 consecutive attacks on bear hunting in California back in 2021 and 2022, when the
Yeah.
Humane Society literally walked legislation into a senator's office and convinced that senator or their staff that this is a good political football to pick up, that they would be, politically they would benefit by picking this issue up, that there's not an appetite for bear hunting in California. And so while these national anti-hunting orgs put a lot of propaganda rhetoric out in front of the consumer, the voter, they also put the same rhetoric and lies in front of politicians, and they'll go in with a very polished communications deck about why they think that this is a political win for them. When that attack on bear hunting in California first came through, Charles, founder of HOWL, spun up a change.org initiative petition, which got like 25 or 30,000 people clicking on it saying that we support bear hunting in California in the first week. And at the same time, there was hundreds, if not thousands, of calls and outreach directly to that senator's office. He set off a tidal wave of support for bear hunting that nobody knew existed. And he pulled that legislation out, removed it, and walked it back with less than 10 days. So that was an amazing win. And most people, when they saw that, were like, "Oh, California's done. Like, you guys are never going to be able to win this." And so we won there, and it kind of sparked the idea that we, as a hunting community, actually do have a voice if we put it together, and if we use it collectively, and we direct it at the point that has the ability to change the outcome. Humane Society of the U.S., again, a national organization, brought this petition forward again in petition format to our commission, and that created about a 9-month battle at the commission level, where HOWL was launched first with an Arizona issue. Then, John, you were familiar with that. I think it had to do with mountain lion hunting. And then the bear issue here in California. HOWL was launched in the last 3 months of that campaign to win and keep the bear hunting in California. And the magic happens because the action center that John described directs the communications to the decision maker, but it's accessible to anybody. So somebody in Vermont can jump on the action center and have a voice about this issue of bear hunting in California. And so where historically, RMEF, mule deer, wild sheep, they all do phenomenal work that's species specific, and to varying degrees, they will work outside of that species for habitat or wildlife or hunting issues. But they're very species specific, and they're very good at what they do. Our goal is to stitch the entire hunting community together nationwide. Doesn't matter if you're a trapper, a bow hunter, a long range rifle shooter, a trad bow hunter, turkey hunter, waterfowl, across all species, all method of take, and all geographies, so that we can pull our voices together and support each other. Because what we've seen is that the organizations that would take our rights away to participate in nature, they are doing so on a global and very much definitely a national level. They fundraise from Florida to attack something in Colorado. They fundraise from Washington State to attack something in Oregon. So we need to pull ourselves together. And this is why everybody that listens to your show can dive in and help too, because these issues will come to everybody's back door at some point. Where an organization will go after mountain lion hunting in Colorado, we can talk about that. That same organization will go up and spin some anti-food plot issue in North Carolina, because they'll go after what's the next incremental thing that they can take away. And that's how they work. And so we really need to band together, and we need a platform that helps us put our voices in one place and put our voices where the issues are being decided at the time that it's needed.
Yeah.
And to emphasize what Mike was just saying, and we need to realize that we're all in this together, that we're all interconnected. The same reason why you can come from Texas to Arizona to hunt deer here, and I can go to Texas and I can do, hunt whatever there, because you guys have everything. You guys have everything. You guys have everything. I never even have to leave the country, and I can have an African safari. But no, I mean, that is part of the reason why we're all in this together. We're interconnected in a lot of different ways. It's like human nature to, you might feel bad for Mike losing his ability to hunt bear in California, but you don't hunt bear and you're not from California. So why do you care? Why should I get involved? Why should I invest time and get involved? But what you don't realize is that Mike losing bear hunting in California has a lot to do with your hunting in whatever state or whatever species that you hunt in. There's a lot of dots that can be connected, and but if you just look at it from the standpoint of setting precedents, like Mike was saying, that if they come after one thing in one state, they can come to your state to get it much easier. Speaking specifically about the Colorado thing, okay, they've written in their definition of trophy hunting, and they could take that same, because now it's a law. If it becomes a law and it's a state statute or whatever, they have legal precedents to take those words of what trophy hunting is, and they could transpose it on what you love to hunt and in your state. And it becomes very easy for them to start knocking down the roadblocks that are up for them. But if you want me to, I can connect the dots. I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I've heard myself say it a million times. So it's up to you, Sam.
No, it's just...
Sam, what comes to mind? We've been talking like, what's coming to mind for you on this stuff?
No, it's just, it's interesting because you talk about, how it affects everybody everywhere, even if you're not local to that species or that state or whatever the case might be. And like, I look at Texas where I'm at, for example, and for years, Texas has had well over 1 million hunting licenses sold every single year. Over 1 million licensed hunters. But, having been somebody like this myself previously, I can speak from experience, just down here, just the way that the hunting culture is in Texas. You buy your license, you have your deer lease, you show up, you hunt your whitetail deer, you put meat in your freezer, you go home. And little mind is paid to, well, where does that money go for my hunting license? What's going on outside of the state I'm in? And then, the last, I don't know, 6 years or so, I've had a couple, 2-3 hunts out of state and everything. And really until this last year, when I went to Colorado, that was the first year I was a little more cognizant, just from my own, maturing and knowledge with this kind of stuff, on where's my money going? What's the purpose that for these funds? What are they being used for? What's going on where I'm hunting? And of course, it's also going parallel with all this stuff about wolves and mountain lions and all this other stuff circulating Colorado right now. But I think about just that number in Texas, for example, over a million every year, how impactful that could be if all million plus of those people knew what was going on
and use their voice.
Exactly. And use their voice.
I think the number one reason the main reason people don't use their voice is a lot of people don't think they have a voice. A lot of people think, we're gonna lose. Like, they have a very fatalistic view of, we're gonna lose anyway, so why bother? Or they're told, contact your electeds. It's like, well, I'm in Texas and this thing's in Colorado. What do you mean contact my elected? I go on, I'm in Texas. I go online to the Colorado Senate and I look for how to communicate with the Senate there, and I'm blocked because I'm not a resident. And lo and behold, talking to the Senate doesn't matter, or the commission doesn't matter, because this is gonna be a ballot box issue. It's like now that I've spent 7 minutes of my morning and my coffee's cold, I'm like, forget it. I have no
sucks to be
I
them.
have no voice. Like, I don't know how to have a voice. And so having a voice, first you have to realize that we collectively do have a voice. And then secondly, it's how do I make my voice heard? Like, what are the mechanisms to go through? And so, like, with our action center, if it's at a commission level, we have that dialed in. If it's at a Senate committee or an assembly committee or something like that, legislative, we have that figured out. The issue in Texas is different. I mean, the issue in Colorado is really dangerous, because it's going to go, it might go on the ballot. It might become a simple matter of every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Susie, Mary, and Jennifer voting. And this is akin to, do you want the average voter to decide on air traffic control processes? Do you want the average voter to decide on brain surgery processes? Like, biology, Colorado Parks and Wildlife has like 300 biologists, many of them masters and PhD level biologists. They have hundreds of biologists whose number one goal is ecosystem success. And so the idea of pushing this vote to the ballot box, where people are going to make a very quick decision because they got busy lives and they don't hunt, or maybe they don't hunt mountain lion even, so they're not really invested, they don't feel invested. They're going to make a very quick decision based on a picture and a headline.
Right.
And so, and unfortunately, the anti-hunting industry has been refining its communications techniques and been feeding communications that are really against our involvement in ecology. They've been feeding that into the common culture for decades. And so we have to combat that. John mentioned how HOWL is working on developing communication campaigns to the non-hunter.
Right.
And not to recruit them to be hunters, but just to recruit and build relevance to where people relate to the reason why hunting is actually good for wildlife.
Yeah.
But we do have a voice. It's been hard to know how to exercise that voice, especially if something's out of our state.
It's almost, I mean, the cards, unfortunately, are seemingly stacked against you in a sense. And I don't want to be repetitive of what y'all shared on another show, but John, you sent me another podcast that y'all done previously, in preparation for this episode. And I recall from that you talking about how it is so easy for the anti-hunting world to push, their agenda, whereas it's a constant uphill battle that the pro hunting or the conservation community are having to advocate for, because we have to frame it in a way that is appealing, for lack of a better term, I guess.
Well, for one, they have a much easier job than we do. Okay.
Right.
I mean, just simply put, they could put up a picture of a bloody that dead animal, okay, and they can spin that in any way, shape, or form. Um, it's much harder for us to tell the story of conservation and where money goes um and the camaraderie and the meals and it's all these things are much harder to convey to the middle ground in the way that we do things nowadays. Like social media, the way we consume information, it's very hell. I mean, if your computer doesn't load up in 20 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever, or a page doesn't come up on your phone that you just search for in like 3 seconds, you lose your mind,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it's hard to have these conversations when there's really no conversation there. And the anti-hunters have a very easy job of doing that. That's why there's a lot of people pushing, hey, don't do rip and grins and yada yada yada. I don't necessarily believe in that because we've been, painting drawings and on caves for, millennia about hunters and their success and so
Right.
on and so forth. I don't think that's something that we should give up. But I do think if you're going to do stuff like that, you have to do your best to tell the whole story of what you have to show the meals, you have to show the scenery, you have to show the camaraderie you had and give a really good story and good caption. Now, is there ways to extrapolate stuff to use it or weaponize it against you? Yes, there still is, they can always take things out of context but at least um you're not making their job easy and
Right.
you're putting out good information. Um, and the this actually I wanted to say something earlier when Mike was talking about it goes hand in hand when we were in Utah, we were engaging with the Uber drivers when we go out to dinner or whatever. Um, and pretty much every Uber driver we spoke to didn't know that we had to get tags. Didn't know that there was most states had lotteries in the West. Didn't know that about hunter's ed. Didn't know that we ate the meat. So there's like all these things that hunters take for granted that non-hunters don't know about. So if they don't know about all these little things and they see, you know, the image of Elmer Fudd or whatever, it's much easier for them to kind of go that route. It's like the other part about it is hunters are hunters, right? We want to hunt. We're doing this. Our passion is hunting. Uh, we want to go out and be successful, and we spend a lot of time and energy doing that. Conservation is a secondary thing to us in a way. Um, and advocacy is not even in our minds. Okay. So the anti-hunters, think about how much passion and effort you put into hunting. Their
Uh,
hunting, their passion is stopping you.
advocacy. They're putting
Yeah.
everything in they put everything in advocacy. Lawyers and communication people.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's not even biologists. They
Right.
spend billions of dollars on
It's
attorneys
all
and
about messaging.
communication and
Yeah.
PR.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
that's why it seemingly feels like an uphill battle because I mean, in a sense, it is, but it's not one that we should be defeatists about. We
Mhm.
can win, and we have many, many times. One thing people don't realize is that at the conservation table, hunters and anglers are still the largest stakeholder. Okay. Even though we're not the biggest population, it's because it's a user pay system. And because money makes the world go round, we have the biggest voice.
Yeah.
So you'll see anti-hunting is constantly trying to chip away at that voice. And they do that in a number of different ways. They do that by removing. So what I didn't bring this up before, but let's talk about that losing mountain lion hunting in Colorado. Okay, if you lose mountain lion hunting in Colorado, there's a certain subset of the people that hunt lions there that only hunt lions there. Like, let's say I'm a Arizona deer hunter. That's all I do. That's my stick. I love to hunt deer here. That's all I do. It's my main thing. And just like, and Mike's a diehard lion hunter in in Colorado. And if he loses mountain lion hunting, we just lost Mike's voice and other people like Mike at that conservation table. Plus, we lost whatever funding came from the tag sales of lion hunting. So again, the voice gets smaller. And if you look at it federally, okay, Pittman Robertson, okay, we all pay into that by purchasing ammo and firearms and archery equipment and so on and so forth. So Mike only owns archery and firearm equipment because he lion hunts. Now he no longer lion hunts, so he's mountain bike hunting. He's mountain biking now, and he's, you know, he doesn't need these things anymore. So he's no longer purchasing those things that fund PR funding. So if you think about PR as a pie, and last year it was $1.5 million, and now you lost Colorado mountain lion hunters, and now it's 1.45 million or 1.545 billion, excuse me. Now that pie just got smaller. So when they cut a little piece of the pie to give that section of pie that's going to go to Texas, and now that section of pie just got smaller because the whole pie got smaller. So now losing Colorado mountain lion hunting just affected Texas directly. And I'm going off on a huge tangent here, but
No, you're good.
I want to talk
You're
about
good.
something positive though. So there are a lot of threats to hunting. There's threats to angling too. Like up along the west coast, you've got tons of regulations, water issues, ocean issues, marine protected area issues. Sturgeon fishing is always contentious. So there's a lot of threats because there are these organizations that are well funded that have been developing communications to feed into the non-hunting public for a long time. But there's also opportunities. There's also ways that we can act proactively. Two issues that are proactive. Florida is Florida is going to have on their ballot this year in November a right to hunt and fish constitutional amendment. And there's a lot of different ways that the right to hunt and fish constitutional amendments are expressed in different states. Some of them are just, wildlife management should happen through the commission, so it can't be done through voters directly. Some of them are just straight up, it's a right to hunt and fish. All of it within a regulated framework. It doesn't mean everybody can just walk out their door and start shooting stuff. It means it has to be through a regulated framework, but it means that the commission and the electors and the electeds can't just take away opportunities to hunt sustainable populations of wildlife.
Right.
So it raises the bar. It makes it harder for something to be taken away. And one of the things that HOWL did last year was we supported getting that onto the ballot because it had to go through their legislature first. And so we had an action item up that people nationally could jump on and express their voice of support to have Floridians get this right to hunt and fish constitutional amendment. So like 170,000 messages came through the HOWL website. People nationally jumped on that and said, yeah, I want Florida. I want my people in Florida to have that on their constitution as a constitutional amendment. So that's where we can all work together. And it went through the House and Senate, I think unopposed. Like it had every elected official in the state supported it. Now it's got to go across the line by individual voters. But these are places where we collectively can work together to win and basically raise the bar, make it more difficult for this anti-hunting industry to take things away. And so that may have to happen over the next 20 years to get all 50 states. I think 23 states have some format of a right to hunt and fish constitutional amendment. But that's a place where we work together. And the other place where we work together is this issue in Colorado, John mentioned that HOWL has partnered with CRWM. So Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management is the advocacy organization in Colorado that has a lobbyist. They do advocacy work just in Colorado, and that's all they do is advocacy work and education. They don't focus on a specific species or type of hunting. So they're doing this, but at a state level. They need funding. They need a grassroots movement to support them. And so we basically started partnering them January 1 of this year and said, we're going to do everything we can to get you airtime, to get you in front of people, to get you this groundswell of support. And by mid-February, so about a month ago, by mid-February, somebody from all 50 states had written them a check. They've received hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not already millions of dollars, millions of dollars, $10 donations up to $100,000 donations from individuals that are not in Colorado who are saying, I want this attack on hunting, I want this attack on wildlife management to end here in Colorado. So we as a community can get together and support that there. Because at the end, often, hunters, whatever our issues are, I want to get in politics. I don't want to get involved in politics. Well, none of us do. None of us want to get involved in politics. But there's a point in time where there's a game going on inside the arena. And if we sit outside and just complain about the refs, well, we're never going to win. So we have to get in the arena at the right time. And this is one of those right times to get inside the arena to where we can fund the war chest and build the machine that helps us win in Colorado. Because I believe that we actually have, I know that we win on facts. I know that we win on wildlife success. I mean, heck, there's 5,000 mountain lions in Colorado now. There were 200 60 years ago when the animal was made a big game animal and started with regulated hunting. So regulated hunting has helped the mountain lion. So I know we can win on data. I know we can win on science, and I'm certain that we can win at the ballot box by getting all 50 states hunters to throw in 10, 20, $50 and support that communication machine that's going to be needed to win there. And if we can win there against this issue, we can do this in any state.
Yeah. Now the science is always going to be in favor, I feel like, of the hunting community. It's a safe estimate, in my opinion. The anti-hunting community, and as y'all have hit pretty well, it tugs on either the emotions or the lack of education of your everyday Joe. And then that's all they have. If you can push the science, if you can push the factual information and that kind of stuff, what you guys are doing, that's where you win. And again, I as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm seeing just in my own little bubble of where I exist and where the people that I interact with or follow, awareness is going up for sure. Because whether you may, even if folks are not hearing something about like the mountain lion issue, even if they're hearing like all this negative stuff about, oh, mountain lion hunting is going away, it's going away, it's going away. Your curiosity, well, what are they talking about? Let me get on Google here real quick. And then that's when I feel like organizations like y'all or Colorado's for Responsible Wildlife Management are starting to pop up and that kind of stuff. And that's where, yes, the educational piece, whether it's this issue or any issue, is vital, because the mountain lion hunting or the wolf issue, whatever, to your point, as y'all have said before, it may not be something that folks are interested in or directly impacts them, but the longer effects down the line of over the counter tags being reduced, whatever that looks like, or just the general number of tags in general being reduced because populations are suffering, all this other stuff, folks have to see the bigger picture.
Oh yeah.
In this kind of stuff. If you look at the here and now, I don't
You
want to
just
be. I
had
don't.
that podcast where you talked about the Colorado draw and
Yeah.
applying and holding. Do I hold points or do I go hunt? And Colorado, I think every hunter that opens up a magazine or looks at like a Colorado landscape and sees a a bighorn sheep or a moose or their mule deer or their elk. Like their mule deer and elk are just phenomenal, and the landscapes are amazing. You've been there now. I think we are all Colorado hunters at some point, whether it's in
Yes.
our dreams, past, present, or future. Like we are all like it strikes a chord for all of us. And so with that regard, it makes sense for all of us to support what's happening there. But the other thing is it's not, and this is where it's not just lion hunting. This is where hunting is wildlife management. Hunting is the number one mechanism we have in every state for wildlife management. Like
Yes.
if you take away I wish it was me, but collectively 500 or so mountain lions are taken off the landscape through hunting in Colorado each year. 500 is a small number, but there's about a population of about 5,000. So roughly 10% take. If you stop hunting mountain lions in Colorado, that population will potentially double in 5 years. You've got 2,500 lions that aren't being taken off, and you've got many more breeding males and females on the landscape.
Right.
So say we go from 25,000, say we just add 3,000. We have 3,000, we get to 8,000 in 5 years. That's 3,000 more mountain lions on the landscape 5 years from now that are each accountable for 30 to 40 deer a year. So we all want to go hunt mule deer
That's
in Colorado.
120,000
Yeah.
deer, by the way.
A
Yeah.
year, like 4 or 5 years from now, that's 120,000 mule deer
A
that
year.
are dying every single year to feed those mountain lions. And lions do what lions do lion things. Like you can't
Yep.
fault them for killing for mule deer, you know. And so what happens in 4 or 5 years as a mule deer hunter? Well, my tag allocations just got cut. My my point threshold to get into a zone I want to hunt in just went up. Like, and now fewer people are buying tags. Fewer people are going in the draw. The money funding, the economic system that supports CPW starts to dwindle further. Not just because the mountain lion issue, but then the ripple effects of the mule deer, number of elk calves that are taken. So there's a kind of the ripple effects of removing a major management tool such as hunting from the landscape is negative and detrimental to all the wildlife on the landscape. For
Right.
us to win this issue and with the mountain lion ballot initiative, for us to win that issue, the communications that we have to have and the conversation we have to have with the non-hunting public to win is the same dialogue we need to have with them about wolf management. So it's not like November 6th, whether win or lose, or we've blown through all our powder and there's nothing more to talk about. Everything we talk about between now and that vote affects how we steer proactively, how we steer wolf management in Colorado, because that's not a decided issue yet.
Yeah.
So to Mike's point, the anti-hunters know that hunting is used as a management tool, and they're purposely they go after the apex predator for a number of different reasons. One, because politically they know that it's an easier target, especially bears. Bears are the most anthropomorphized animal out there with teddy bears and so on and so forth. They know that it's politically easier, but they also know if they put more apex predators on the landscape, that it's going to remove hunters by proxy because of what Mike just said. It's going to reduce the number. If there's less deer out there, there's less need for hunters to take the surplus of deer. We're used as a management tool. We don't look at hunting. A lot of us think it's hunting is our right or whatever, but really we're a tool used by agencies to manage herd populations. And if something else is on the landscape managing those populations, there's no need for you. Then again, like Mike was saying, it starts breaking down the system. And it's a
Yeah.
snowball effect because if there's less money coming in that hunters were paying for the privilege to go hunt, then there's less money going to habitat and management stuff. So by default, there's going to be even less deer because there's no money to support habitat and so on and so forth. So it just like keeps tumbling down and into a downhill spiral. And eventually you could possibly see hunting in certain states go away, that don't have giant populations. So like Arizona, we don't have a very big deer herd here. We don't have a big deer herd here at all. It wouldn't take a whole lot to tip the scales to a place where hunting would be very, very limited. I'm not saying it's going to go away completely, but to be very, very limited.
Yeah.
If you look at a place like Nevada where they give like no tags at all, I mean, you could potentially see something go away completely there. I mean, that's one of the mindsets that we should all have when we're thinking about, oh, that doesn't affect me. Oh, I don't hunt mountain lions. I don't hunt bears. Eventually, once they get done doing all that stuff, they'll be able to come after deer and elk and things that you love. So,
Yeah.
And at a lower level, they trapping, none of us understand trapping. Trappers understand trapping, but trapping's so easy to go after because so few people understand it. Running hounds, so few people run hounds that a lot of us, collectively have not supported running hounds. But then you hear about like turkey populations in the southeast have started to decline. It's like, well, how much trapping of fur bearers is going on? And so like people stop putting traps out for raccoons and foxes and bobcats, and then the turkey population starts to go down. There's probably a relationship there. And so that's where HOWL advocates that all of the methods of take should be allowed, should be supported, and it should be up to the Department of Natural Resources or the Fish and Game Commission to decide when those methods of take can be deployed to drive ecosystem success and balance. But if the turkey population in a given state is on the decline because of all the small predators, but they don't have that trapping tool available to them for hunters to go out and use, their hands are tied.
Trapping is definitely one of those, I don't know, it's so easily swayed. Like speaking from a hunting and outdoor media company here, we have we have content creators all over the country. Mm-hmm. And some of them are very avid and very good at trapping within their state's regulations. But we've found that we have to be extremely cautious at how we share that content, because literally every single time we have in the past, we start getting messages from people who either don't understand or are opposed to it, and they see it pop up and it's an easy target all of a sudden.
And are these messages coming from hunters, or are they coming from people that are kind of on the fringe just watching what you do?
I would say both.
Okay.
We have had questions just over the years cumulatively from both.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I do my thing where, I'm like, well, who is this person? Let's, what do they look like they're a hunter? You do that when you're on the, administrative and receiving end of it.
Is this my constituent or not?
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, it's so easily just taken out of context. And
it is. But but what's interesting is that, you take away mountain lion hunting in Colorado. Mountain lions are still going to die. Like mountain
Right.
lions you can't hunt them in California. Mountain lions still die every year in California by contracted, paid hunters who are using taxpayer dollars to kill mountain lions. So instead, we've inverted it, but the state agencies in almost every state, when they take trapping away, guess who gets to keep trapping? The state keeps
State.
trapping.
Mhm.
So the tool, so like if the tool is so bad, if it's so evil and merciless and bad, then it should be taken away from everybody. Like they shouldn't sell mouse traps at Home Depot. It's the same. Like
True.
why is that mouse any any holier than a bobcat? Like they're both mammals, right? They both
Mhm.
Yeah.
squeal and make noise and thrash around when they're trapped. So if we're going to do this, let's be intellectually honest about it. Let's take away all the poisons from Home Depot and Lowe's. Let's take all the poisons out of the garden center. Let's take all the traps and sticky boards out if we can't trap. Because at the end of the day, they're just tools. They're tools to manage the critters within our sphere, whether our sphere is our basement or the 160 acres out back.
Right.
And so this while the anti-hunting industry will raise the flag of victory when they take trapping away somewhere, they're leaving trapping on the table for the agency to use because they know that they can't win if they don't do that. And so animals still die in traps. It's just not an economic system where hunters, other humans, can participate voluntarily.
Or
And
pay into.
yeah, and pay
Yeah.
to participate, whether or not they're successful. And so that's where I think we all, and I'm guilty. I'm sure 20 years ago, I probably would have voted against trapping 20 years ago. I don't know if I did or not. I don't know if it came up on a vote in California like that, but we need to be quicker to support and understand, and that then as opposed to not support when we don't understand.
Yeah.
I think Mike just opened the door for something that I've been wanting to say.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that, if not the biggest thing, I think hunters can do in general to help spread that messaging, help reach that middle ground, is to educate ourselves. Is to educate ourselves on what the North American model of conservation is. I'm not saying go ahead and memorize it because I couldn't even tell you the 7 tenets off the top of my head. But understand the inner workings, become a steward of hunting. Everybody wants to be a pro staff of some company.
Yeah.
They want to represent hunting. They want to be recognized. I'm going to dub everybody listening to this right now. You're now an ambassador of hunting. You are now a pro staff of hunting. You're a hunting ambassador.
Yeah.
And you got to almost formulate in your head, start thinking about what hunting means to you. Okay. And how you can portray that to somebody who doesn't know what hunting is or what it does, and be able to have like a 30-second spiel about what hunting is to you. Learn that. Okay. And then if you think about it, we all touch people that don't hunt on a daily basis at work, at school, in the line, getting coffee, whatever. If you have conversations, if all 16 million hunters in the United States had a conversation with 2 people a year in 10 years, if I'm doing my math right, in 10 years, we would reach everybody in the United States and they would have a better understanding of what hunting is. Now, again, Mike said it earlier, we're not trying to convert non-hunters into hunters. And if some of them do, great. That's fine. But we're not trying to convert them. What we're trying to do is create a sympathetic voter that understands, that has a better understanding of what hunting is and what it does and what it means to us. The human values, all the awesome things that go with it, the meals that come out of it, the memories, the heritage. And these people start understanding that, if you're talking to somebody at work, Sam, and you tell them about hunting, they don't hunt, and now something pops up in Texas, that person goes there, they're like, I remember talking to Sam, and Sam's a good guy. I'm probably not going to vote this way. Or at least they'll look into it more. I'm not saying, it's the solve all, but it certainly would help us tremendously if we were able to start swaying not
The
necessarily,
neighbor, the neighbor.
I don't even want to
The-
say swaying, because swaying sounds like it's giving them the right information.
yeah.
Taking away that negativity and the lies and the propaganda that they've been fed to since they watched Bambi,
Yeah.
And it's like, if we can do those things and we all become ambassadors of hunting, and we could take it back to what we were talking about earlier, is thinking about what we're putting out there and what we're saying. If we're all good stewards and ambassadors of hunting, that's going to go leaps and bounds, and we're going to be able to move mountains. And I mean, in my opinion, we would be a force that it would be undeniable. So,
In that regard, also, sometimes I have to catch myself. Even we talk about the voter, like the voter who chose to reintroduce wolves in Colorado. We talk about that voter very negatively. Like we have all kinds of colorful ways to describe, that that voter who doesn't choose our side. The problem is that voter is usually being swayed with a very quick decision that's infected by the true anti-hunting industry. We need to pull those voters in. We need to realize that voter doesn't care. Like that voter doesn't think twice about our issue unless we're having them think about it. And so we have an opportunity to, instead of being mad at that middle of the road voters, as hard as it is, we need to love them. We have to actually embrace them and say, hey, come over here. I want to talk to you about this thing that's really important to me. And it's going to take time. It's going to take potentially, decades, because they talk to our kids in school about hunting in a way that doesn't look good. They educate kids intentionally to skew their mindset 20 years later. But we need to realize that if we are angry with that voter, we will never get them to support us. If we talk smack about the average, 34-year-old urbanized, postgraduate student that drinks a $7 latte every day, if we talk smack about that person because they don't get us, well, they'll never get us. In fact, they'll just be like, they'll put the finger up to us as well. And so we really need to acknowledge that people can't know what they haven't learned. And if they haven't learned what it is that we're talking about, why hunting actually helps wildlife populations, if they haven't learned that, it's because we haven't been the ones sharing it with them. So we need to just we need to take ownership of that aspect of the communications, and that aspect of making sure that our community, the 100 people that live around us, the 100 people that we work with, the 100 people that are closest to us at the softball league or at church or wherever, that they all have that they understand what our value set is. And the more we share that value set with our immediate communities, the more those people will then turn and support us, and they'll have resistance to this kind of infection of propaganda and rhetoric coming from outside.
Yeah, you talked about earlier, the uneducated image of hunters, just being these crude people who kill animals, for the sport of it. We have to be, you talk about being stewards of hunting, but being stewards of the image of hunting that we portray, and that's where the impact is made, right? If I'm talking about, just walking out there, and I have to be mindful of your audience, but if I'm talking about walking out there and down here spotlighting coyotes or something at night, which is a completely normal thing that we do down here because it's predator control, because we got a ridiculous amount of coyotes. And as we talked about kind of in the trapping conversation, that impacts, our turkey population and, it can impact our deer population, fawns and everything. And it's like,
There's
but
purpose. Like there's actual
yeah,
purpose to
Mhm.
hunting the
there's
coyotes.
purpose to doing.
It's not just because I want to be up at midnight.
But yeah, but I have to be mindful as a hunter and
Yeah.
being a steward of hunting. I have to be mindful of how I'm portraying it and whose ears my,
Mhm.
story or whatever is falling upon, because I don't want somebody to think, well, you're just going out there and shooting wild dogs basically for the
Mhm.
sport of it. Not saying that I don't enjoy shooting coyotes, but it's there's a reason I'm doing it,
Mhm.
and that's what everybody needs to be cognizant of. And I like what you said earlier, having that 30-second spiel. I think was that you, John, that mentioned that,
Mhm.
was having that 30-second spiel um to portray that, because that's I
Yeah.
don't know,
I
you're
mean, you only get one,
one
most of the time, you
opportunity.
only get
Yeah.
one opportunity.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of us don't really like, if you seriously asked yourself, why do I hunt? You'd have a hard time kind of putting that into words. Um, you know, I'm definitely no wordsmith, and I probably sound like I'm a extra on a B-rated mobster movie when I talk. But um, I sat down long and hard to think about what hunting was to me. I actually wrote an article on my blog, and your listeners are more than welcome to go take a look at it, called "The Hunter's Paradox." Um, and it kind of spells out, it gives some of the truths, and not some, I should say, gives some of the uh I don't even know how to put that in words actually right now, but it gives some of the sides that, like, I do stuff for adrenaline rush. I do stuff because it's fun. Um, but it's not the only reason why I hunt. It's not the only reason why, you know, I do what I do. So, and if you can look at all these different things, if you read that, might help you formulate your own opinions. Um, or just take a deep dive into your own psyche and kind of like, hey, why do I do this? And pick out the stuff and think about the person on the other side, how they would receive that.
Right.
Okay. When I'm on the outside looking in, of course, looking at somebody going out there with a spotlight and shooting coyotes from the road or whatever, that looks terrible
Right.
because there's no context there,
Right.
So the same thing goes for your conversation with somebody. There's no context there. So when you're giving them your reasons, and you got to kind of like, flesh it out in a way that, hey, the person on the other end, they can consume this in a way that it makes them understand. Um, I keep going back to, when we were in Utah talking to Uber drivers and stuff. I continue to do that, by the way, Mike.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it was
you know, that
educational for us.
that that interaction and realizing where people are coming from. I started to touch on it earlier, that there's a big disconnect. They don't really know. They just know what's been fed to them over the years, or what they've heard, or what they assume. So, just giving them the actual facts, and the actual, that in itself it moves mountains. It
Yeah.
helps. So,
They also have only been fed one thing. They've only
mhm.
been fed one line of discussion, and from a mass media perspective, the major publications, they kind of have a blessing. The whatever the Humane Society puts out is taken as truth. Like the New York Times will just print it, like, well, the Humane Society said this. So somehow they've built up this trust in media. Um, but our like the counters to that rhetoric is often not there. And so sometimes it's as easy as us just saying, "Oh, hey, yeah, that thing, like, I get it. You love mountain lions. I love them too. Like, I love them too, man. I want lots of mountain lions on the landscape." But that thing that they said, where they said it's inedible, that's actually a lie, because I know these 7 people here that eat mountain lion. Like
Yeah.
they love mountain lions. They hunt them and they love seeing them on the landscape. But when they take one, they actually eat the meat. So why is that organization lying to you? Like we just need to introduce the other side sometimes. We don't even have to convince them. Like if people just understood that there's an industry that exists to steer their opinions. Like, why does that industry exist? What's really going on here? And if they're so righteous in their initiative, why do they have to start with lies? Like,
Right.
voters don't want to be lied to. And so if that person that's in the middle generally doesn't care, they're going to start to look at the lies and the rhetoric differently, and that alone is going to flip a portion of people to be supportive of what we do. Not that they want to do what we do, but they get it, and they see there's truth in it. Like, there's truth and there's realness in it, and we don't have to misrepresent what's going on.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I want to bounce real quick in our conversation, because I know, John, you've used as examples a couple times, like hunting in Arizona and everything like that. But I wanted to talk real quick about, because there was just a loss of auction tags or in Arizona, or that's kind of headlining right now. You want to talk a little bit about that and what all's involved with that?
Yeah. Let me preface this. Anytime, and this is a good example of why we need to be unified. Every time that there's hunters on both sides of an issue, that issue almost 100% of the time will side with anti-hunting. Okay. So there are people within the hunting community that believe that auction tags are not good. There's some people that say it doesn't follow the North American model of wildlife conservation. There's other people that look at it from you're taking away opportunity from me. And there's really a lot to unpack there. So I'll kind of try to simplify it a little bit. Let's talk about the opportunity first. Okay. So people think there's people within the hunting industry that think, hey, you're giving away a tag that could have went to the general public. So you're shrinking my odds. So we'll take sheep hunting here in Arizona, and I'm going to use arbitrary numbers and shrink it down so it's easy. But there's 10 units, and we give away one tag per unit for the general public to draw, right? They add an additional tag. They add one more tag. And it's not a tag that they can add to any one unit. This one tag is split up over the 10 units. So it's like 1/10 of a tag per unit. And if you know about the way the opportunity is set, is a biologist go in there, will figure out carrying capacity and yada yada yada, and they know how many animals have to come off the landscape, okay, to have a sustainable, healthy population. So that's why you can't add one tag to one unit, because that would skew the management objective for that unit. But 1/10 of a tag doesn't really affect the numbers. Okay, so they add one tag. Okay, so out of the 10 tags that are given for Arizona residents and non-residents to draw, let's say, and again, these are arbitrary numbers, let's say it brings in $150,000. Okay, that money goes into whatever it needs to go into to support sheep hunting. Well, in Arizona statute for these auction tags, we sell a tag for $380,000. $380,000, 100% goes to sheep. 100% has to go back to sheep. 100% goes back to the department. Okay, so that $380,000 came in on one tag versus the 10 tags that were there previous, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that's the opportunity thing. If you're also going to look at it in a different light, okay, when they started this program back in 1984, there was only 40 something sheep tags total. And now I think it's 150 something tags. I don't know exactly, but it's at least that much. So
Sounds like wild sheep management has been successful. And
Yes.
this has been a part of that.
right. So we created 100 more opportunities for you to draw a tag through the funding that came in to put more sheep on the mountain. So people look at it like, oh, you're taking away it. But no, it's because some rich guy is willing to take $380,000 out of his pocket for an opportunity to go hunt sheep. And he is creating with that we're creating with that money this many more opportunities for you to go hunting. The other big thing is, you want to say
I was
something,
just
Mike?
gonna say when you say it goes back to sheep, I think like that's hard to envision. Like, what's that mean? But if you envision like habitat support,
So
2018 to 2021, ridiculously terrible drought in Arizona.
Mhm.
Millions of gallons of water were trucked or flown by helicopter out into the desert landscape, into catchments and water tanks throughout Arizona. Those millions of gallons of water kept sheep and deer populations alive through one of the worst droughts in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
That ain't free.
Nope.
And so like that is one of the most tactical and measurable and obvious ways that you can say, why would it be good for us to have a $500,000 donation for one tag?
Yep.
It's because it could fund keeping the entire sheep population in a region alive for a year or two.
Yep.
That's a great. I'm not
Go
trying
ahead.
to get you
Sure.
off your comments here, John, but that's a great analogy, and I'm glad you made that because I feel like it doesn't matter if it's sheep or something more local to you, whatever state you might be in, but I feel like that's something that hunters themselves don't hear about a lot because
Right.
everybody they might understand, okay, I buy a hunting license, it goes to wildlife management or goes to conservation. But what does
What's that
that
mean?
mean?
Right.
Yeah,
What's that mean?
nobody, not that the information is not out there for them to find. Some folks might not make an effort to learn, understand, but it also leaves it open to interpretation that, well, they're just making money off of me,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's the
Anyway,
other
sorry.
thing. The other thing is the skepticism of where the money goes.
Right.
So in Arizona specifically, it's a statute, it's a law that 100% of the money taken in for a tag has to go to that specific species. So again, using sheep, they sell that tag for $380,000, $380,000 has to go. So I think the mentality of it is, oh, they're using that money to buy trucks and pay salaries, but it's not. It's 100% restoration and habitat specifically for sheep. It doesn't go to the department, doesn't, and it and the people auctioning it off, like the wildlife groups that are doing that, Arizona Deer Association, Desert Bighorn Sheep Society, all these, they're not, they don't get any money. So people are like, oh, why? Well, why do they do it? Well, let me tell you why they do it. One, it's kind of an attraction tool to their banquets. It brings more people into the banquet because they want to see these crazy numbers on these awesome, things. And so they'll be able to sell more tags, more seats, excuse me, more tickets. They'll be able to sell more of the things that raffles that they're doing within their banquet. So there's a benefit there. But the Arizona statute also is, if this organization auctions off the tag, they can, well, I'm not exactly 100% sure if they're first in line or not, but they have influence as to, they're part of this group that decides what projects will be done for that year for those species. And that means a lot to them because they're like, okay, cool. We have a say in what water holes being built or what, fence lines being repaired, these things that happen for these projects. So that itself is a bad thing. But if you look at it doing what Mike and I do and what HOWL for Wildlife is doing, we look at it the whole picture, right? There's infighting going on between hunters. And if I'm an anti-hunter and I see this, I'm just salivating in the corner, just waiting for the aftermath. Which dead bodies am I going to scoop up here? That's number
Right.
one. Number two, we talked about that voice at the conservation table. You want to take a big chunk of the voice away the conservation table, you take away the $3.2 million that was made by auction tags.
Yeah.
Okay.
For how does that work?
And you take down Arizona, which is the gold standard of what the auction tag system is. It is the most defensible. There is no money that deviates from it. There's no, we already talked about all this. It's the most defensible. You take it away from Arizona, how quickly do you think the other states are going to lose it? And now we're not just talking about $3.2 million. Now you're talking about, I don't know how many states have auction tags off the top of my head, but you're talking about tens to 15s and 20s and millions of dollars.
Yes.
Now that voice just got really small. And you just play into the anti-hunters. And I'm not against removing, I just did a podcast with Arizona Game and Fish, which unfortunately I'm not going to release because Arizona Department of Game and Fish are not the commission. And it was kind of unfair to put them in this position to talk about this. But the only thing that they're going to be expected to do the same work by operating leaner. Okay. So anybody who's in business will say, well, if you can operate leaner, then why don't you operate leaner and we'll still take in the $3 million and we'll be that much better off, right? Where HOWL for Wildlife was upset or why we were promoting the keeping of it was there was no plan in place to replace it. And you don't remove this wildly successful program until you have a suitable replacement. If you have a suitable replacement, then sure, present it to us. We'll present it to everybody. We'll let people make their decision, or we might not even get involved. We'll let you guys do your thing. But there was no plan to replace the auction tag funding mechanism at all. There's some ideas, none of which are equal.
Yeah.
But
They're not equal. And I can just imagine the various and the small number of the hunting community that was griping about these rich people that can come in and hunt. They're gonna be equally pissed, more pissed when their tag prices all go up $25 a tag and their license goes up $35, and this $3.2 million is backfilled, by the small change that we spend on hunting opportunity, because that's gonna go up. The other bizarre thing is, like, do you side with the football team when you go to the stadium and the stadium's a mess and they got ragged old uniforms that look like crap, like, and the bathrooms were always dirty? Or do you side with the team that has, like, everything's shiny and clean and they got crisp uniforms and the bathrooms are clean? Like, this thing where people bitch, like, oh, they're just going to buy more trucks. It's like, wildlife, like, do you want game or they're like, oh, there's not enough wardens, there's no enforcement, but we don't want them to have more trucks. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
what do you want? Like,
It's
do you
like
want to pay for a system that's top notch and working? I realize everything run by government sucks. Like, I'll say that everything run by government doesn't run as efficiently as you want it to. But there's a point in time where, like, if you want wardens out there enforcing the rules, they need trucks. If you want habitat work being done by actual biologists that have a degree in ecosystem management, and you want them out there doing the work amongst the thorns and the cactus and the scorpions, that costs money. Like,
Right.
that
Exactly.
stuff costs money. So you got to be willing to pay. So either Jimmy John is going to spend $1 million on a mule deer tag, or I'm going to spend 50. All of us are going to spend more money on our license. It all costs money. Like, we can't have it. What's the saying? Like, that's why we can't have nice things. Like, we
Yeah.
can't have it both ways. This stuff can't be free and good. So, like, we got to be willing to pay, or we got to be willing to embrace somebody else that will pay and thank them for it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and you look at any one issue too, Colorado, Arizona, pick a state. You somebody from down here in Texas might, look at Colorado or Arizona and be like, well, I'm not going there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But you got to think, if your plan is to go on that, what you would call a once in a lifetime hunt,
Mm-hmm.
5, 10 years from now, whatever it might be, well, not just the repercussions from population tag availability and stuff like that, but yeah, as y'all have just talked about, the financial side of this, how much more is my tag going to cost in 5 years if these issues aren't addressed now? So
Yeah, you've already seen it.
yeah,
Wyoming, Montana, for sure. I know those two. They've increased their elk tag by a significant number. It's almost $2,000 for an elk tag. It's
yeah,
$1,900 in Wyoming. You know, at some point, it's going to become financially prohibitive to do any of those things. And
Yeah.
so,
But it's a limited resource. Like it's a recurring, sustainable. It is sustainable, and there's a supply and demand aspect of it, and there's a need to protect habitat and support habitat. I mean, there's a lot of things at play, and there's weather. Last year, a lot of the western states herds got just crushed by the worst winter in a century or something like that. So there's just a lot of real factors here. I think what John said is most important is that there was no plan in place to backfill this funding mechanism, and that kind of looks shady. It's like how did the commission come to a decision, a 4-1 decision, so quickly, with no other commission meetings where it was discussed at length, and no backfill plan in place? Like, to me, that's bad management. And or there's decisions being made in the background, in the back room, that we don't know
right,
about, which isn't how any of us want our wildlife management decisions to be made. And it's also where, like, we fear Washington State, their commission. I will regularly accuse their commission of having backroom dealings with the anti-hunting industry. It's like, so the last thing I want is a commission that I have a lot of respect for, which is the Arizona and how they manage wildlife. The last thing I want is that commission to be doing things in the back room.
yeah,
Because if the anti-hunters are doing it and we're going to call them out, then we don't want our own internal leaders
mhm.
operating that way. So
exactly.
yeah, it's definitely frustrating. It'll be interesting to see where that money comes from,
Yeah. And
if at all.
they might have a great plan. They might come up with a great plan. It's going to force them to. So I don't know. Hopefully they come up with some. I know there were some talks. So Arizona does this special draw for a handful of tags. Like they're kind of work like the raffle tags in a way. Um, there's some talk about them going there. They might go strictly all to raffle, which I I don't see from an economic standpoint how that would even come close to matching. But um, hey, I mean, what's done is done now. At this point, they'll have to figure it out. But
They can reverse it, though, and this is something that Hal talks about a lot. The commission, while they made this decision, they can reverse it tomorrow. Whereas if this was done by the legislature,
mhm,
by electeds, or by ballot box biology, those decisions, whether they're made by the ballot box or by legislation, are a lot harder to reverse.
Uh-huh.
And that's one reason why you'll always hear us talk about the decisions need to be made at the commission level. They usually take the longest to be made, but they're the fastest to be reversed if new data comes up.
Yeah,
Whereas if it's through the ballot box biology or if it's through the legislature, they happen too fast. They happen without good data and science informing them, and they're almost impossible to reverse. So, I mean, who knows? This commission could decide a year from now that they didn't have a plan and they're going to go back to what was working so well.
Are there
Technically,
ways? Are there
technically they
ways
could.
that I know whether it's through an organization like yours or other means, are there ways in instances like this, auction tags going away, that the everyday hunter in Arizona can, I don't know, have an impact on that? Let's talk a little bit specifically about people, and it kind of segues into the final point that I at least have in my notes here for our
Mhm.
conversation, and that is, um, you talked briefly about it kind of at the beginning when y'all were talking about what y'all do, but how people can specifically get involved and make that impact.
Showing up works. Showing up at a commission meeting, and most of them are on Zoom now as well. It does take time. Most of us are working all day. It's hard to break away and sit down and watch a Zoom or be part of a Zoom meeting. But showing up works, and speaking to the commission. If it's not on the agenda, you can usually there's like a public input where you can comment on something that's not on the agenda specifically. Showing up and having a voice about issues in front of the commission works. Then the other side of it is writing to your commission. If something's not on the agenda, you can write to them, you can email them. And when something is a live issue, like somebody brought forth a petition has to be received and at least looked at the commission level. Typically doesn't have to be considered beyond that, but it has to be at least received and acknowledged. And once something's on the agenda to be received and acknowledged, public input is available there too. So something could be put in a petition format, submitted, and if it got traction, that's something where HOWL could put an action up and say, okay, everybody, let's dive in here and have our voice. But showing up at a commission meeting through Zoom or in person and speaking for 90 seconds about your position on something and why you believe that way has a tremendous impact.
Yeah. And phone calls too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So guys, I want to, I know we've been going on for a while now. But as we begin to conclude our podcast together, first and foremost, I wanted to make sure that, we're not leaving anything on the table. If there's anything else that you guys want to be sure that you bring up in our discussion here and mention to our listeners, mention to anybody tuning in, if there's anything that we hadn't hit yet or that you guys would like to talk about.
No, I think
HOWL memberships.
HOWL
Absolutely.
memberships.
HOWL membership.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Test
that's
drive
good.
the Action Center. Go to the Action Center, test drive it, use it for free, and then become a member.
Yep.
And John's got the whole list. John's got a pitch on. We've got some cool membership opportunities and incentives right now.
Yeah, like Mike said, we have a way for you to dip your toes in the water and test it. And we're the only organization that I know of that offers a free membership. So you can get on there, become a free member, just to test things out. But ultimately, we would love you to become a full member and either purchase our $30 a year membership. Helps us keep the lights on. This is not a cheap endeavor, unfortunately.
Absolutely not.
But we have a really cool hunt giveaway right now. And we have this $100 membership, and it's a 1 in 500 chance to win a guided mule deer hunt in South Dakota with myself and Charles. It's actually the ranch that I've been guiding on for the last 7 years, and I outfit there. The hunt is going to be filmed, meals, lodging, taxidermies included. It's a fantastic hunt. It's a great experience, and it's probably, if not the best, one of the best odds to winning a $14,000 hunt. So you just go on there. If you go to our our join the pack page that has all our memberships, you'll see on there's different things too. Like if there's tools, like if you use Go Hunt, for instance, Go Hunt Insider, Go Hunt has partnered with us and has been a partner of ours for a couple of years now. Even if you already have the tool, you can go on to Howl for Wildlife and purchase a Go Hunt membership, and you get the full subscription like you would the $149 subscription that you would if you would have went to their website and purchased it. But they give us 50%, actually 60% of the total amount of that comes back to Howl. So if your CPA is good, he can get you that. If she can get you back in your taxes. And but we've added some bonuses to it. You get the Howl membership, which is $30. Okay, so that gets tacked on it. You get extra 15% off to shop in the Go Hunt store. Plus, there's some extra giveaways within that membership that are provided through Go Hunt. So it's a fantastic program. You kind of behooves you if you use Go Hunt to. I don't want to take money out of their pockets, but it would almost behooves you to not purchase the Howl membership. Excuse me, the Go Hunt membership through Howl. So we've done some really cool things too with like Pope and Young Club and American Bear Foundation. You know, if you're in a position you want to support these orgs, they're like Pope and Young membership is $45 if you go to directly to them. If you come to us, it's $45. But now that membership fee gets split between Howl and Pope and Young. So we've done this one because we want to show unity and the stuff that we talked about earlier in the podcast. So Pope and Young and us and American Bear Foundation, we're trying to lead from the front. We're trying to show you that we can share and we can be involved with each other, that the rest of the community can. So it's a great way to support both organizations. You get both memberships, and it saves you money. So I think that I got everything, Mike.
Yeah. howlforwildlife.org. Join the pack for the memberships. The Action Center is really easy to find. I think it says Take Action. The Action Center refreshes with new items at least monthly. And so things come and go on there as they show up in legislation or in committees or in the commissions. And once you've taken action with us, you can click to receive updates. And so we send an update about monthly about kind of hot topic issues and how to get involved. So those are both key. And then the other thing, we've been talking about Colorado a lot. We're a 501c3, so we're a nonprofit organization. Donations that come to us, if we then pass them on to the Colorado CRW and Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, would be very difficult to do because they are a C4. They're an advocacy organization specifically. One of the challenges that we as a community have is that all these various species orgs, mule deer, Rocky Mountain elk, NWTF, et cetera, they're all 501c3s. They can only put a small percentage of their overall budgets into direct advocacy. So even your favorite species orgs can't send money to Colorado very effectively. And so we've been advocating throughout this whole year that if you want to support, if you want to throw 20 or $50 behind this issue in Colorado and support the initiative there to win when this thing hits the ballot box, send money to CRWM directly. And their website is savethehuntcolorado.com. So super easy, savethehuntcolorado.com. You can get more information directly from them, but the money that goes to that organization is going to be what fuels a victory in November through educational and marketing tools in Colorado. So that's how to support that, and then obviously howlforwildlife.org for everything that we're doing on a national level.
Yeah,
be fantastic.
Awesome, guys. Well, I know for our listeners, again, I'll put my emphasis on there as well. Like go and sign up. Like even if you don't have the money, if the budget's tight, a free membership, at the minimum, anybody who listens to this podcast can at minimum go do that. And I encourage everybody to do so. But
thank you.
Guys, I really appreciate y'all coming on the show for this week's episode and talking to us about all this stuff. I would call this, one of our rich conversations. It had a just packed full of information and stuff that folks need to pay attention to. So thank you for taking the time to share all that with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fall obsession. Fall's only 6 months out. It's almost time. Time to start thinking about fall.
I got to get out to my place and do some whitetail management in March right now. So
Exactly. That's awesome. It's always hunting season.
It is, yeah. Despite what our name says, we're active and involved year round, all seasons combined. So, but
I love it.
now.
Thank you.
Thanks
We'll
a lot.
see you, Sam.
Yeah.
Take care.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you all. For those of you guys listening, thanks for tuning in. We're back again next week for another podcast, and I will catch you guys then.
Thanks.